one thing that I hear that really vexes me, when they say, yeah, we're going to hire some people of color, but we have to make sure they're qualified. They never say that when it comes to the dominant culture. I humbled myself and I was vulnerable around him. I never had a black teacher. Coach Elniski was the greatest mentor that I had that taught me that I could be a teacher. World announcement here. This year I'm going to be...
Welcome. You're now listening to Just Bobby.T.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? So welcome to another episode of the Cadence of Just Bobby.T. Today, I have the one and only, the forever, dopest person who I've met, Andrew Parker. What is up? Thank you for joining us. And how are you doing today?
My brother King, I'm feeling excellent, man. I just want to give praise to the Most High and thankful for all the beautiful entities that brought us together after years of conversations off camera. I'm excited to have these conversations in person on camera. So blessings, man.
100%. And we've been connecting so much over this period. And the last time I had a chance to kind of sit down and chat with you was with Sarah, her first little Instagram live, and then we were able to kind of chop it up about the BTA, but I'm getting ahead of myself. For the individuals, the small group of people who don't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Andrew Gershon Parker. I'm a teacher. I'd like to do work in the community. A big, strong supporter of solidarity, activism, truth, love, and justice. But before all of that, I'm a father of two loving children, Quincy Cameron Lubinga, as well as Zuri, Rosa Claudia, Navatanzi. Those are my king and my queen, and I put them before anything, and you're going to hear a lot about them in this interview today because I feel like we're in the Renaissance, the Black Renaissance, and part of that Renaissance is acknowledging that the roles that we have and the titles that we have are very important, but the number one role is who we are to our kids, to our kin, to our family, to our community. So in a nutshell, I'm just Andrew Parker. Some folk call me AGP. And for the nuanced folks, they're going to start calling me Gershon right away. So shout to my grandpa.
And you know what? You just touch upon where I wanted to go first and going way back. Do you recall when we first met? I'm kind of curious.
Shoot, fam. I feel like we met even before we met, if that makes sense, because you and I were both involved with Jamaica Association and NBCC. You was King of the West, you, Champ, Brewhagen family, all the West Side brothers. We loved y'all, the brothers out of SFX and JP. And then, I was out there doing my thing in the North with my crew, my team, the Day One family, CV, Castle Downs, the whole borough. But you tell me when you say we met.
So first off, you're right. We met before we met. But my official time, kind of meeting you, you were doing one of your famous house parties.
You didn't tell me we was gonna be talking about that.
We're gonna take it back. And AC was like, "Yo, my boy Parker is throwing a party. These parties are legendary. Come check it out." And I remember at the time I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll come check it out." I'm like, "Is he And I didn't know. I knew you, but I didn't know you. And then he was like, so we went. Got into our cars, hopped over to your spot. It was lit. But here's where I think our relationship, and I was like, yo, I'm going to know this guy to the very end. Come to your house. I don't know you. You don't really know me. And you just showed so much love and respect. And this is when we're youths. You showed so much love and respect. You gave me a shout out. You were on the mic. You shouted out the West Side. You shouted out AC. You shouted me out. And then you just showed just straight love. And when I reflect on that and I think about that, you are the same person. As in, all you do is what I've seen you do in terms of engaging people, engaging the community, engaging youth, engaging your peers. You just show so much just love, and I just want to highlight that and kick this conversation off with that because I have so much respect for you, Andrew, the work that you do, the person who you are, and more importantly, for you just being you and being genuine you.
Man, family, like that. Humbling, first of all. We are from the Caribbean, and in the Caribbean, when we have a fete, when we have a party, when we have a jam, we're one of the most welcoming communities in the world. So whenever we used to throw a fete at my yard, we would have West Side people, South Side people, Sherwood Park, St. Albert, white people, black people, brown people, Filipino people, Christian people, Muslim people, atheist people, all kind of people together. And the way that we bond is through food and through communication. And of course, like you said, love. I remember Jerome was there too. I remember because we have a picture of a bunch of us. Blaine LeBranch was there. Jermaine Buckner was there. What we try to do at those parties, and quiet is kept, this is a true story. When I got my scholarship from U of A, they would do it in installments. So the first installment would be like in January, and the second installment would be like in April. But April's when my birthday was. So for about 8 months or whatever, when the homies would be taking care of me and taking me out to dinner and going to the parties and all that, I said, I'm going to get y'all back. And every time I got them back was in those parties. So I remember that party, brother, and I'm thankful for that. You actually just reminded me of something that I you know, you get older, you forget stuff. You forget about those things, but that was one of the most meaningful events that we ran, were those jams in Castle Downs and inviting everybody in the city down to it. So bless you for that, brother.
100%. And you know what? And I feel, and I'm kind of wondering what comes to mind, but like, it's funny how, like, you know, fast forward years, decades into the future. And I think you were planting seeds of relationships, seeds of conversations, and I would imagine some of those turned into fruitful relationships. But then also, I'm sure some of those didn't really grow to fruition, which is all good, but it allowed you to just develop. And I'm kind of wondering, like, ultimately, because I think you're a man of relationships, what does that process look like for yourself? Sort of building relationships.
Being genuine. You know, in the North, where we from, the West as well, like, we know our origin. We know our stories. We know our narrative. We know where our parents came from. We know what language they spoke. We know what food they ate. We know that sometimes we take that food to school and some folks wouldn't know about it. We had to educate folk about it. So being genuine and being humble and being loving and caring and thoughtful and respectful, respect is huge, right? People everything. Come to your house, come to your yard, it's a two-way street. You know, you respect them and you hope that they would respect you as well. Now, in terms of like planting seeds, seeds of love, man, seeds of connection. We're going to see each other in another walk of life at some point in time. Sure, we were at the concert. Sure, we were at the basketball game or at the house party. But we're going to see each other in public. And what's that interaction going to look like? Are we going to be hating on each other? We're going to be loving on each other. We're going to be uplifting each other. So that's kind of like my whole vibe is like, how can I help? How can I support? And how can we move together? Like, period. How can we move together in the future and look out for the next generation at the same time?
So I imagine like that mindset and framework got you into certain different activities like ball and things like that. And I wonder if you could tell people and share a little bit about your experiences playing ball, because I think all of this, because I'm going to walk everyone through sort of a little bit of your history, because I think it all interconnects.
Oh, without a doubt. Like, one thing I wanted to do as a basketball player was not be one-dimensional. I didn't want to just be remembered for the fact that I could shoot or I could dunk or I could steal the ball or play defense, get a rebound. I wanted it to be more multidimensional, because human beings are multidimensional. You know what I mean? So the relationships that I had from junior high, I still have them now. I got a very strong connection to the Ford family. The Brandon Ford is my best friend. I call his mom. I call his dad Uncle Al. I just talked to Ryan Ford this morning. Jermaine Buckner, when our family immigrated to Canada, that's my brother. Blaine LeBranch, I met him through Jermaine Buckner. And Jordan Zablosky, I met through my homie Ryan Colerick on the northeast side of Edmonton. So right there, I named like 4 or 5 people who I knew when I was 10 years old, and now at years old, at years old, I'm still friends with them. Connections are important because they're going to need something. I'm going to need something. If we're truly a village, which is what our culture teaches us, we are a village, then why can't we help each other and use those connections to benefit the community and ourselves?
And you know what? I have to like echo those same sentiments. I think sometimes people, regardless of the line of work or the industry that they're in, they forget about the connections, about the relationships, because we don't know what someone's going to be doing a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And more importantly, people are going to be doing something, if that makes sense. And so fostering those relationships is sort of that advantage and that unfair almost way to hopefully be successful in whatever you're trying to accomplish or do.
Absolutely, my king. I couldn't have said it any better.
So when you're now playing ball, I imagine having fun, but also to developing relationships and not being just one dimensional.
Right.
I'm wondering, when did teaching start to come up?
This is the most brilliant question ever. Had a mentor, man, Tom Olniski. I'll say his name forever. And it's deep that we're talking about him right now, because this next upcoming year is going to be the first time I won't be in Lizard High School in like 10 years. So it's a tough one, because the whole reason I became a teacher is because of Coach Tom Olniski. The gym is named after him. But he's the one that kind of showed me that, I have a skill set that is different. It's beyond just basketball. And he saw that in me, and he fostered that in me. And basketball, when I got out into the world, my story was to tell them about where I came from and who I was and who my people were. So when I went to U of A, I wasn't just a U of A player wearing number 14. I was AGP from the block of the North. Same thing when I went overseas. I wore number 99 to honor Wayne Gretzky. So folk who saw me playing and looked and said, Edmonton is there, they're like, 99, Wayne Gretzky. Oh, I get it. This is where this person is from. So basketball for me was most beautiful thing in the world. It all of us love the game. Every one of us love the game. But once I got older and got into teaching, it was about teaching the game, teaching life, mentoring young men and women, asking them, who do they want to be once the game is over? What is your impact in your community going to be? Not just in the game. The game is going to be gone. We played high school for 3 years for some of us, and we are done. We played college for 4 years after it, and we were done. And those of us who were lucky to play professional, maybe we had 5-10 years, and then we're done. And then what? And then what? Who are we? We can't just be talking about the fact that we was dunking on people back in the days. We got to talk about what we're doing in the future and how we're supporting the next generation of ballers. So shout to that.
And just to stick on this topic for a bit, I'm kind of curious, like, for ones who are listening right now saying like, hey, like, I wish I could kind of have that relationship with a mentor, maybe not necessarily in ball, but in whatever path that they're on. How did you foster that relationship? Like, how did that come to fruition? Like, did he see it in you and start dialoguing? Like, what did that look like?
I humbled myself, and I was vulnerable around him, if that makes sense. I never had a black teacher, but Coach Olniski was the greatest mentor that I had, that taught me that I could be a teacher. So when someone sees something in you that you don't even see in yourself, he planted a seed in me. And I think he kind of knew that, like, my passion was obviously just being a gregarious human being, someone who's always laughing and having fun. But he saw that, that passion could be used in a lot of different directions. So for the folks who are looking for mentors, sometimes they find you, sometimes you find them, but it takes being vulnerable sometimes and saying, I don't have all the answers. Like I have this tattoo, but this is what it means to me. Or, I hang with these brothers from this block, but I also want to give back to the block at the same time. So being vulnerable enough to say something to someone where you feel like you're trusted and there's a trusting relationship, that's huge. If there's no trust, then you're not going to be in a mentoring relationship. If somebody comes to you and says, we only want you for basketball and that's it, I would have left the door. And I was recruited in high school to go to different schools all across the city. And their whole hustle was like, get away from your community and hang with us and you could be this. And my thought process was, no. Why would I? We're going to build this community. We're going to leave something for the youth, and we're going to generate some pride and love in people's cultures. And Olniski was 100 with me. So I hope the youth find these people. And when they start speaking into those things that make you feel like a human being, that's when you know that's a mentor.
Yo, Andrew, like, you just dropped straight up like a cheat code where I think people don't understand. The trick is to be vulnerable. And so many of us, and I'll even shout out specifically, young boys, young men choose not to be vulnerable, and they're always putting on it. And I get it. We have to sometimes put on that like shell to stand strong and make sure that we're fearless. But if we're looking to build more and we're trying to build a deeper relationship, the trick is vulnerability. That is such a dope perspective, because just as you said that, I was thinking about some of my most impactful mentors that were in my life. And the only reason why we were able to develop a deeper relationship where they actually had my back and looked out for me was because I was vulnerable, because I said, hey, you know what? I'm actually in a bind. I need your help. I need support, or I don't understand this, or I just don't know what to do. And that's when things started working or started coming to fruition, or I started getting the support, help. And so that's such a huge point.
Like, especially in our culture too, like think of all the things young brothers in the community got to deal with. You dealing with racism, you dealing with brutality, you dealing with discrimination, you're dealing with preconceived notions, you're dealing with stereotypes, you're dealing with mental health, which we didn't talk about 20 years ago because it was never something that they told us to pay attention to, or
didn't
that
exist.
we were capable of comprehending or understanding. So we had to find other ways to build that mental health capacity, that Black mental health capacity. But as soon as you find that person you can be vulnerable with and just be truthful, like I got that with a few people in my life, and of course our team here, yourself and Keenan and all the brothers and sisters in the city of Edmonton that are trying to do it. Being vulnerable is key. Just tell them what your heart, what you need, what you want. They may say yes, they may say no, but there's someone you can talk to, and that's period.
100%. So to kind of flip the script a little bit, or on that same wavelength, like I'm a big component, which you know, about social media, building a brand and communicating. And one thing I've noticed about yourself is you kill it when it comes to amplifying people's messages, telling stories through social media, telling stories on Twitter, telling stories on like Instagram and things like that. And I'm kind of wondering, how do you utilize these tools, whether it's a Twitter, whether it's, again, like an Instagram, like how do you perceive it?
For the longest time, this is deep because I just posted yesterday a television show called 227, and 227 was one of the African American television shows where we used to stay up late at night to watch on NBC and ABC. But in that generation, we did not have the access to be our own programmers. We didn't have the access to be our own producers, our own directors, our own actors. So when they created this social media thing, instead of just, maybe bigging up myself or something, I tried to find all the people in our community that had a voice, that had a message, that for some reason, for whatever reason, would not reach the mainstream. And we said, okay, we're either going to join the mainstream or create our own stream. And I think what we have done is created our own stream with our own lens, with our own words, where we could speak Patois, where no one tells us to correct our language because it is our language, where we could speak Yoruba, where we could speak Tigrinya, where we could speak Arabi, we could speak Somali, and be heard and felt and received. And for those who don't know what those languages are or know what those dialects are, they can learn through our platforms. So with my platform, and also at the BTA, this is what we've done, Sarah, me, and Matthew, is we try to give voice to the folks who were once perceived voiceless. And then from there, we present it to the overall public and say, make a decision. Are you going to sit there and watch this and switch to the next one? Or are you going to stay a little while and maybe join the movement?
And damn, Andrew, because when I think about exactly your channel, your platform, the work they do as BTA, the amount of education that you've given me, the amount of application where I have been able to find certain resources, certain individuals, certain events and activities happening in my community here in the city that I had no awareness of, but because of your channel, I was able to receive some of those items, attend certain events, amplify certain voices, or get brought to my attention some issues that are facing our communities. And clearly you had a plan. Clearly you're a man that is trying to accomplish something, and it's so refreshing to see that. And so I just have to give you your flowers where they're due. And you just brought up the BTA. And for those who are listening who actually have no clue what is the BTA, tell us a little bit about that. Give us the history, and what is the BTA exactly?
I have to give a shout out to the whole entire family, 65 strong, Leduc, Calgary, Red Deer, Edmonton, Fort Mac. Shortly after the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor in the second civil rights movement, a bunch of teachers, Black teachers, brown teachers, allies, decided that enough was enough. We had sat there and watched these hardships happening in our community. We watched it in real time. We watched it during COVID-19. There was nowhere else to go. I mean, this is the time where you only one person was allowed to go to the grocery store. So the majority of the time, what was we doing? We were on social media. We were watching the news. We were watching TV. There was a speech that happened in Edmonton, and after that, Sister Sarah reached out to me and we had a very deep conversation. We talked for 2 hours. And in that conversation, I said, Sarah, I think we might have to start a Black Teacher Association and find each other and help each other and provide a voice for these situations, because sadly, and I'm going to say it again, sadly, some of the institutions in education, they were not speaking to what was happening in our community. They were not acknowledging it. We waited and waited and waited, and we said, are you going to make a statement? Are you going to address this? Are you going to talk about brutality? Are you going to talk about systemic racism?
Yeah.
Are you going to implement anti-racism? Are you going to have diversity and equity initiatives that aren't just window dressings, as one of my elders said?
Yeah.
And from that conversation, me and Sarah branched out. We started a social media platform, which is now one of the strongest education tools as it relates to the Black community in Alberta. And it all started just by us taking a leap and saying, you know what, the way that it was done before, we're not doing that ever again. We're never going to do it and wait for someone else to give us the message of how we feel about a certain situation or what we desire. So we wanted to be a voice. And the BTA is the official voice of Black educators and allies in Alberta. And I tip my hat to Sarah. Sarah is the hardest working young Black African teacher in Canada. And brother Matthew in Calgary is right there. And shout to Trinidad. I have to big up Trinidad too. Trinidad is there. But we formed the union. And it was amazing finding all these people and hearing their stories. And
I'm wondering, with that sort of now finding all of these Black teachers all across Alberta, who I can imagine from some of the bigger cities to the smaller towns, all have stories. I'm kind of curious, was there anything that you learned firsthand that kind of shocked you?
Absolutely. Our brothers and sisters in remote areas, pray for them often. When you're in a small town, sometimes folks may not have the capacity to understand the challenges that you're dealing with. Sometimes you're isolated. Sometimes you don't have people to talk to who understand your situation.
Because I imagine straight up they're alone.
Yeah. And I mean, I was able to see that small town versus the big city, there was still that piece of isolation. And the reason why there's isolation, for most of us, we're the only Black teacher in our schools, the only ones. So what I was surprised by was, and I have to drop this jewel because Brother Jean-Marie and Brother Tex, in a recent conversation with the BTA, asked me to speak on this, but the challenge for some of us is even getting the opportunity to have a job. They told me this term that actually stuck with me, and I've been thinking about it the whole month. It's called permanent substitute teachers. So what does that mean? That means that you're a sub, you can't get a temp contract, you can't get a probationary contract, you can't get a continuous contract. And this is the levels that it starts with. So you get a temp, you get a probe, you get continuous. Once you get a continuous, you're hired, you're good. But if
that means you're a full-fledged teacher once you...
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's kind of like a stamp of approval.
Yeah.
But for some of us, you have high qualifications, you have a high skill set, you're from the culture, but you've been subbing for 8 years.
Yeah, and
how is that possible?
And I'm curious.
Yeah.
How is that?
You and me looking at each other saying, how's that possible to each other?
Yeah.
And this is one of the main initiatives. The first initiative of the BTA was representation. How many opportunities does our community get?
Yeah.
Because in one situation, I'll just say somebody said, somebody said that for 3 years they asked their principal, are we going to hire another Black teacher? And for 3 years, the principal said, we're working on it. We're trying our best. But within that 3 years, there were 8 teachers from that principal's previous school that were brought to the school that Black educator was at. All the while that Black educator was asking for Black teachers. So the Black person in that scenario was basically saying, well, how is it easier for you to find 8 people from your previous school than to find our people and give them jobs that they've never had before?
100%.
So this is one of the initiatives. Like, I get on the phone often and I talk to a lot of people older than me, and that hurts my heart because that means I'm advocating for my elders for something they should have received 20 years ago.
Like, that to me is it's insane and it's so shocking. And I guess that is the reason why the BTA has come to fruition. More importantly, those are sort of the matters that you're addressing. And so when you're tackling a problem like that sounds like there's a lot of complexity to, because let's be blunt, the school system is an institution. Where do you start?
Start from the bottom, like Drake said, man. We go to those people, we talk to them. Give me your resume. Which schools have you been to? What's the name of the assistant principals? Who's on your contact list? How do you get on the sub list? Which schools have needs? And then, my friend, after all of that, we go to social media. And then for my platform, I'll say something to the effect of, hey, got a person here with a master's degree in counseling, who also has taught for a number of years, who is capable of coaching basketball. Can we get this person a job? Second post, hey, we have a person who's from Rwanda. He's fluent in English and in French, can teach French immersion, can teach French classes. Here's his name. I can provide you with his contact number if you send me a DM. And that's worked. That's actually worked, because some of my friends, through the connections we made, through the influence we have through BTA and our own influences, will say, okay, Andrew, okay, Sarah, okay, Matthew, I have a place for your friend. How can we help? Now, this is what bothers me though, Bob. We did that as a group that formed after the second civil rights movement, right? We did that, right?
A bunch of teachers and individuals.
Right? Okay. We have some institutions who have a ridiculous amount of money, a ridiculous amount of resources, and a ridiculous amount of staff power. Is it not possible for that to happen? Now, if it has happened, I apologize to every person who is doing that work. I apologize to all. However, we are in the field, and when we see that, we will speak to it. If we don't see it, then we're gonna make it
100%. So in my space, the arts community, it's kind of the same conundrum. There's a lot of individuals, there's a lot of groups, there's a lot of people saying, hey, we want to hire Black creatives, we want to hire Black directors, we want to hire these individuals that have these skill sets, but where are they? We can't find them. And that, to me, is the biggest load of BS. Like, it is such shit. Like, we are out, not only we're out here, but we're knocking on the doors. And I get it that if some groups don't see or don't understand, because they're not from our communities, ways to engage with us or give us information or disseminate that information to us, that's cool. Then hire us into some of those more leadership and senior positions, so then you can then penetrate these other communities, these other groups. And so it's not so much work, because let's call it what it is. If your board, your executive is all white, then how are they going to be able to penetrate some of our diverse community here that we have here in Canada, here in Edmonton? And more importantly, you're only going to know your people. You're only going to know your community. So that's why that's one of the major points of why diversity is important, and why it brings so much value depending on whatever space that you're trying to do.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at any institution that has hired someone, but not in a tokenized position. So let's say there's a diversity consultant, an anti-racism consultant, and they're committed to the work. They have free reins. They have the power to make hirings. Then the institution has the capacity to change. Now, we still have to work on policy. We still have to make sure that we ourselves as Black people aren't perpetuating some of the previous notions of what power is or what leadership is. But if we're able to create nuanced approaches to what leadership is, and we are providing that representation piece, then everyone's going to get what they want. But until that happens, sadly, some of these institutions are going to look and be called systemically racist. So it has to be not just one group of Black people that you use when you want to wash whatever bad thing happened. It has to be all of us, and all of us have to be streamlined. And if we have a specific skill set and resources to achieve the goal that you are saying that you're trying to achieve, use it. You can't just try and create it on your own. It's not going to work that way. 100%. You have to work with the community.
100%. And it's crazy to think that Like, that's the easier route. Like, to empower the individuals, the people who are already doing that work that are from the communities, why would you want to just recreate that? And sometimes I know that's just like a grasp for power. They want to retain that control. And so what happens is, whether it's some of that leadership or that senior groups, they'll say, okay, cool, well, we will do this. But it's like, why? You cannot. You're not from us. You don't understand clearly you don't understand our history. You don't understand our struggles. And we're already out here doing the work in terms of having the discussions, disseminating information, and more importantly, our communities are comfortable sharing their challenges that they face. They're comfortable sharing their wins of what they want to face. And so we're able to not only receive that information, but then really have impactful plans, strategies to then move this needle forward. And why would we go back?
And it's not even a situation. The one thing that I hear that really vexes me, and shout to Jamaica because I'm going to drop a little patois in there. So, but when they say, yeah, we're going to hire some people of color, but we have to make sure they're qualified. They never say that when it comes to the dominant culture. No one says, hey, dominant culture, you have to be qualified. It's always, and sometimes sadly in education, it's like we have to hire someone that we deem qualified. But what does qualified look like to you as an institution? Does that mean someone who follows your rules? Does that mean someone that speak like you, act like you? Or does that actually mean that somebody's good at what they do? And if so, why would you ask that? If we all have our degrees and we all did our practicums, we've already did that process.
Because it's not like you're going to be hiring like straight up someone who doesn't even have like a high school diploma to be like it just doesn't make sense. It is, I'm sure, insulting.
Yeah, it's, and again, like I said, the majority of the folks that we've been working with are older than Sarah and myself and Matt. And then what does that say for the young kid who's 22, 23, just graduated from University of Calgary, University of Alberta, University of Lethbridge, that wants to get into education? Uphill if their battle. Elders are still not getting jobs, or worst case scenario, imagine it's your dad or your mom and they're fighting for their job and you're walking into the same profession as them. What type of message are we sending to the community?
And we know exactly the type of message sending. It's like, hey, don't be a teacher. And so then what happens, and because like I remember I was reading this article about how if your teacher is Black, then inherently, because your teacher could potentially see themselves in you, see themselves in, they invest deeper into you. So the importance of having representation as a teacher is because if a student is struggling due to some cultural issues, struggling from identity issues, struggling from just the grasp of the work itself, having someone, a teacher, invest more time into you, see that, hey, I understand, I've been in those shoes to work through some of those problems, work through those challenges. That is sometimes the factor that then makes that student then become successful and climb out some of these holes that we fall into, but more importantly, then prolong into the education channels and, reach some new heights.
So that same piece of information that you received, in the same article, it says that the likelihood of Black youth who are taught by Black teachers to graduate increases by 13% if the representation is there. So 13% of the population from our community more so will graduate high school if they have a teacher in-house. And this is where I'm going to throw like just something out there. At some point in time in education, in the institutionalization of education, they prioritized institutional knowledge versus cultural knowledge. Cultural knowledge is what we have before we even step into a classroom. Now, if they could find a way to get that cultural knowledge like higher or more received or more understood or more respected, could not that benefit this institution? But if we continue to say that the institution knowledge is more important than the cultural knowledge, there's going to be clash.
100%. And to be blunt, that makes no sense, because when you look at technology, when you look at how fast the world is moving because of the internet and the many other AI and all this stuff, the institution knowledge can't keep up, but the cultural knowledge is driving it. It's what's keeping it going. So to have it almost combat it just creates that friction that makes no sense.
And then you ask yourself, when you come to school after watching all those videos on Instagram and seeing all those stories and looking at every single TikTok video, and you come to class and you're like, well, wait a second, how do we still only have one Black teacher? How is that even possible? So I think
or I can imagine to some extent, sorry to interrupt you, but like you question, is this by design?
And this is where we have to talk about our country and some of the things that happened here, even with the residential schooling system. The design was to, quote unquote, this was inside policy and government policy to kill the, quote unquote, Indian in the child. So what other policies were present there that would foster not supporting multiculturalism, true anti-racism? And how many of those policies have been carried over and changed? The name of it been changed or the document slightly altered, but at the root of it, are we still fostering some of those notions? These are questions I have. These are questions I have right now.
So to flip the script right now, people listening on this like kind of conversation, there's some people like, well, like, Andrew, why do you need a Black Teacher Association? You already have a teacher association. So I hear you on some of the issues and some of the challenges that are faced by teachers, but like why? You have a teacher association that represents you.
Watch this. Why do we have French as a class in our schools? Why do we only listen to one national anthem every morning? Why does administration have to have one chemical makeup? And the question about we already have a teachers association. For 3 years, I sat in that association. I talked to some good people there. However, there were only 2 other Black people in the room when I was in those meetings. So when we as a community decide to uplift each other, support each other, to become autonomous, to be self-determined, to desire something that is completely different from what is being provided, that is true liberation. That is true emancipation. So asking us, why do we need a Black Teachers Association, is essentially asking us, why do we need to be emancipated? And the reason is because our ancestors weren't. They didn't have the same opportunity. So we're going to push for this emancipation, this liberation as far as we can go and see what the next generation does with it.
And to follow the same thread, for the people who are on right now is listening and they're like, well, okay, sure, I get that. Well, why do you have to always see color? Why do we have to always have these issues brought up in sort of a black and white kind of context?
We should tell that to the kid who comes to school, who's Indigenous and who's Black and who's Asian, who deal with racism. But then when we ask for education to speak on anti-racism, people say that the kids are too young to learn that. If they're too young to learn it, then they should look at the experience of the kids who experience it. And that being said, sure, it would feel like black and white, but it would also let you know that how powerful white is and how powerful black is at the exact same time. So it can't just be, well, we want to operate from a place of comfort. Your comfort, sadly, is perpetuating the harms that happen to our community. And this is why the status quo in all institutions, not just education, business, or politics, they need to be challenged. Once we challenge the status quo, we can understand that, yes, there are some gaps that we're not meeting, and we should be meeting them. And if we don't meet them, we're just going to continue this process of coming back and saying this was racist, or that was bad, or this was harmful, or this was misogynistic, or this was sexist, over and over and over again until we address it and finally put it to bed.
And like when I think about it, this was maybe about 2 years ago. There was like a big thread that was going on Facebook where it was called the first time it was called an N-word. And I distinctly remember the first time I was called that in grade 2, which then brought into like a fight. And when I came across that thread, I recalled sort of that feeling, that emotional burden when I first realized I was different than everybody else. And from that, I had a conversation with my wife where I asked her, like, hey, when was the first time that you realized that you were different, as she's grew up in a small town? And to hear so many different stories about how that change of dynamic as a youth, as a child, when you realize you're not like everybody else, growing up into usually, you know, a dominant like white area or space, where it's just not populated with black people, is so impactful. And it's something people don't understand unless you're from our community, unless you're from our culture, unless you're black and you experience some of those issues and challenges. And for some of us, that can manifest into a number of different things, whether it's, again, not being that successful in school, but not you questioning your identity, and so you start to lean into other things, other devices, to compensate, to kind of fit in, not really realizing that if you were to lean into your culture and your roots, that would empower you.
Exactly.
And a lot of us, and I remember, I'll speak for myself, I experienced that thankfully because of these two organizations, the Jamaica Association in Alberta and then the National Black Coalition in Canada, that when I started to feel that, thank goodness my parents grew me up with these two organizations that then locked in that. And I met people like yourself. I met other Black individuals. That's the breath that's here in the city. And so I got that reassurance that, hey, actually, I have peers, I have family members, I have other people that look like me who are not only doing great things, but damn, it's great to be Black.
You know what? Like, I just wanted to break out into To Be Young, Gifted, and Black right now. Aretha Franklin. Your experience was in grade 2. Mine was in grade 1. And through a publication, it was like the ATA magazine, I finally told that story. And it was about me and Brandon Ford, where these kids in the park started calling us the N-word. And the wildest part is that they threw down on us first and we reacted, but we got in more trouble than they did, even though they said it, until we started making a big noise and telling our parents, like, hey, this is what happened. This is what was said. Sadly, my brother, like, those microaggressions, those macroaggressions, those challenges, that othering, making people feel like they're not belonging in certain spaces, that they are different. That's a challenge that our youth are dealing with today, everywhere. And it's not just in school, it's in a lot of different places. But shouldn't school be a safe space where they could actually not feel those things?
100%.
Shouldn't school be the place where they should learn about how to promote diversity, to promote anti-racism, to promote community, to love each other, to understand how harmful our words are to our youth, and not only that, to our elders, where those words come from, who created those words, under what context, how long it was used, how many people died because of that word. When I heard the N-word in grade 1, I thought I was going to die. I thought these cats were going to kill me. So of course me and B was like, all right. So now we got to get back into that stance. But that being said, yeah, those words, like, we got to think about it. We got to think, who taught these people these words? Who told them that these words are still important? Who told them that if you say that, you can make a Black person feel like they're not powerful? Why wouldn't you do the reverse? Why don't you say something that will make a Black person feel powerful, feel emancipated, feel strong, feel loved? You would have a better ally than a worse enemy. I promise you. I promise you on that.
I imagine the work that you're doing with BTA, your work that you do as a teacher, and also the work that you did while you were in your career of playing basketball, kind of summed up and kind of merged together in terms of Pride of the Northside.
Yes, sir.
And I'm wondering if you could take us first a step back. Tell us what the Pride of the Northside is, and tell us why you created it.
Pride of the Northside, and it's bittersweet because world announcement here. This year, I'm going to be retiring my position as director of Pride of the Northside, and I'm going to be handing it to our youth, and I'll explain why once I talk about the origin of the Pride of the North. Pride of the North was started by myself and my teammate J.R. Patrick. We were playing professional basketball. We were both from the North Side. He was from Northeast. I was from Northwest. But I played all my basketball in the Northeast at Emily Lazard High School. We started this basketball tournament because for years and years and years, they had all these amazing activities related to basketball, but it was always about 2 hours away from where we lived. And I often ask myself, why is that? It's because we Black and brown. It's because, you know, we come from a area that in some spaces are lower socioeconomic. Is because of some stereotypes about the community of North Edmonton. Why? So instead of just saying why, and asking help, and telling people to give us give, we just emancipated ourselves and said, well, we'll create our own tournament. Let's see what happens. In the first year, we had like 4 teams. Then we had 15. Then we had 25, 35. At our peak, we had 50 teams. It was absolutely buzzing. And then this year, like I said before, I kind of reached that moment where I'm like, you know, I took the tournament as far as I could, but I'm so excited for what the youth can do with it, because it was about empowerment. It was about ownership. It was ours. It wasn't someone else tapping us on the shoulder and telling us, do this, do that, do this, do that. No, you can't do this. You can't have this. You can't have a dunk contest. You can't have a lower dunk contest. You can't have a 3-point shootout. You can't have a barbecue. You can't have Caribbean music being played. You can't play Afro beats. You can't do this. You can't have a DJ. Like, we took all of that naysayer talk from wherever it was coming from and dash it into the garbage. Done, completely gone. And we said, you know what? We're going to do it our way as two young Jamaican men and people who support our community and bring our families. My mom has been involved every single year. My brother has been involved every single year. Auntie Cherry and Uncle Ken every single year. It's a community event. It's not just a tournament. So you see a lot of cats now are running their tournaments, and I'm happy for them. Enjoy that family. But what we do is different. It's a family reunion. It's community.
And just to double down on sort of what you're outlining, like you were not just hosting a tournament, but you were actually reinvesting back into that court, reinvesting back in that community. And I'd see you painting the courts. You would put back fresh new nets and things like that. And I was wondering if you could walk us through what that kind of restoration looked like of investing back into sort of your stomping grounds.
Shoot, I was out there with the lawnmower, family. Had the lawnmower. I put gasoline in it. We got the weed whacker out there. I've never been a painter. I'm still not a painter. But we recognized that there was a need. And a couple times we asked some folks to help out, and a couple times they were able to help. So shout out to Dorian Andrews from Southside. He's an Ainley bruv. One of the Ainley bruvs I really love. He has a painting business called AAA Striping, so they helped us a couple years. But the rest of the time, it was really me. Actually, I surprised GR one year because he said we was gonna do lines and this and that, and then I got up at like 7 o'clock in the morning. There was no cameras, there was no photo op, and I went to Canadian Tire. I bought like, oh my God, man, $500 worth of blacktop paint, supplies. And my cousin Jamal Buckner saw me. He was on 71st Street and 144 Ave. He was going to church, actually, and he saw me doing it solo, and he stopped his car, called his family, and said, I ain't going to be able to make it to church, and he came and helped me, and then Jordan Zablosky came and helped me as well. We did that because we wanted the kids to feel special, because they are special. You don't have to go all the way to other side of the city to feel special. You are special in your neighborhood. You were special when you came out your mama's womb. You were special when you eat your traditional food, and you're special at Pride of the Northside. So, yeah, it was deep. It was crazy. No, it's crazy.
That's so dope, and more importantly, that's refreshing to see that kind of investment back and that pride ultimately in your own stomping grounds.
Why not? All of us could do it. All of us could do it. You see garbage on the ground, you pick it up. If there's a kid who don't got a basketball, they playing with a flat one, go get a pump up the kid's basketball. You know, if the lawn needs cutting, cut the lawn. You know, holler at grandmama, holler at grandpa, holler at your brother, your sister, your aunties, your uncle, and we'll do it by community. People just started helping. They brought generators so we could have electricity. The first 6 years, we had no electricity at the tournament. Somebody brought a generator for us, and then eventually the school opened up their electricity. That started giving us a barbecue, started helping us with bleachers. So it takes that piece of initiative, that piece of bravery, that courage, that black bravery to try something new. It may work, it may not. Who cares? Try and see what happens.
And that's so important, because sometimes people wait for permission or over plan instead of just doing, experimenting. Just that's the first step, is just to do it, and then go watch how everything might fall in place from there.
You remember in Jamaica when they used to have pushcart races?
Oh, 100%.
That's a revolutionary thing, man. Oh, you mean just all of a sudden we have pushcart races and it turns into a big championship and everything because we took the initiative.
And just did it. Built them and then got them going.
Don't know.
So moving into, some of the people who are curious, like when is Pride of the Northside this year? How can they find out more information? Like, what are the details on that?
Pride of the Northside is August 19th and 20th, which is in about 3 weeks. Next week, I'm going to be painting the court. And it's in a different location. It's still at Londonderry, but I'm so proud to announce that after 14 years of running this basketball tournament, through generous donations from the Edmonton Public School Board Foundation, the Londonderry court is finally going to be receiving a revamped, renovated, brand new basketball court. It's going to be state of the art. It's going to be one of the best basketball courts in North America, in Canada for sure. And that's one of the reasons why I feel comfortable retiring from the position as director, because that was our mission, was for them to finally change the court. If we had left 7 years in or 5 years in, who knows? They probably would have never come to that court and helped. Who knows? But it's because we advocated daily, yearly, monthly that this is happening. So August 19th, 20th, family, please come. Bring your lawn chair, bring a blanket, bring your dogs, bring your cats, bring your mongoose and snake, and bring whatever. We'll have food for you. We're going to be selling the last Pride of the Northside shirts ever.
Okay.
Let's say from the previous model. The next generation, they'll make their own thing, but
Yeah.
this will be what we call vintage for you youngsters. But come on down Saturday and Sunday. The mayor's going to be there. Henry Gizmo Williams is going to be there.
Dope.
Myself is going to be there. I'm trying to get Ryan Real forward too. I got to text him today and see if he can pull up, but a lot of good people in the city will be there.
So with this being, as you said, the last chapter, I'm kind of curious, what's next?
You the one that told me we was gonna run for mayor one day. No, shout out to Amarjeet Sohi. He is, he's been a Pride of the Northside 3 years. Don Iverson was there for 3 years as well. I did get a chance to do it with Mr. Mandel. I think he was just towards the end of his term. But what's next for me? I really am committed to my post-secondary education. I'm doing a master's degree in social justice and international studies. I'd love to follow that through to the very end.
Yep.
I will be taking a step back. I love my kids, man. I love my kids so much. Quincy, man, that's my heart. My daughter Zuri, I want to spend some time with them. One coach last year told me something like, yeah, I missed my kids' Christmas concerts, and I missed this and I missed that. And I said to myself, I don't want to be that dude. I don't want to be that dude. I want to be present when my son is saying his speeches, when my son is dancing, when my daughter is singing her beautiful songs, when she's enjoying painting and hanging out in the backyard and running through the sprinkler. I want that. So I'm going to take some time to be with my family, but I am going to commit to my education, and I will be doing more like freelance stuff. So if this community needs support, yeah, I'm going to show some love. If this community needs a connection, yeah, I'm going to be there. My Instagram is still going to be showing love to the culture and all cultures, but I will be taking a step back because 14 years is a lot of freaking years, brother. And I'm a little bit tired. I'm not going to lie. I'm not afraid to say I'm tired.
And I can imagine, because this is during the summer, let's be blunt, in some shape or form, this kind of eats up your summers. And so I'm sure you're not able to kind of take your trips.
We ain't been on
or
no
book
vacation.
your stuff or,
We've been on the last vacation I went on, where did we go? Me and Ken went, it was a honeymoon.
It's a honeymoon.
So, and the week after the honeymoon was Pride of the North. So we boogied back from Mexico, and
and you got it to Pride of the North.
All my homies was like, get off of social media, stop promoting the tournament, you enjoy your honeymoon. But we was natural born hustlers. We had to
100%.
grind. But now I'm at that age where I'm like, I want to be like that Godfather 3, having a wine, being in a vineyard, chilling, watching my kids doing what they want to do and letting them handle things. So, yeah, man, shout to everybody in my community, the west side, the north side, the east side, the south side, the black people, white people, Filipinos, Muslims, all y'all, man. Just thank you for supporting this tournament. It's been an amazing 14 years, but I trust the future. I trust the kids. I'm giving it to the Black Student Associations, all the high school and junior high ones. It's going to be your initiative, and then reinvest your money into the community, reinvest the funds into initiatives that you want to do, and then know what it's like to have ownership where you get to be the person that makes the decisions. You get to be the person that gets to speak in front of the cameras. You get to be that person that gets to change the format into any way that supports the community. Let's go.
Great point to kind of wrap things up on. And I'm kind of curious, before we actually wrap everything, is there anything that I missed that you want to add?
Sure. I'll say it. We need to support our queens in our community. That's our moms. That's our queens. That's our daughters. That's our sisters. From what I've seen alone in education, the Black female voice is so powerful, so necessary, and so real. So I do want to thank my mom for mentoring me and my brothers. Shout out to my parents, and shout out to everyone that's protected us, that helped us, that understood our challenges. I want to give a shout out to all queens in the community. I walk alongside y'all and everything that you do. I want to support all communities, every single intersection that's out there. Keep fighting for what you want, family. Like, it's never going to happen unless you just take a leap of faith, and having faith is important. That's why I always say peace and blessings to the Most High, and I praise Jah, praise Jesus, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, Father Time, Mother Earth, because I feel like all of them are working in our favor, and it's when we deny them and deny those presents, deny that love that we have, that spirituality, where things kind of start going shaky. So I do want to shout out to Emmy Lizard High School. I know, you know, it was a grind. We didn't get a chance to finish the chapter the way that we wanted to, but it's to be continued. I hope to goodness that you get another African Caribbean teacher in the future, in the very near future, like tomorrow. That'd be awesome. And for all the family at Ross Shepherd High School, I'm gonna bring everything I got for you.
That's the new stomping grounds.
Hell yeah. And shout to Rick Stanley for acknowledging who I was as a human being. It's a really different game in my thing in teaching when your principal knows who you are, like actually knows who you are, doesn't have to guess, doesn't have to speculate, just actually knows who you are. And my last shout out is to Principal Kim Bax at Jasper Place High School. Jasper Place now officially has the most black teachers in all of the city of Edmonton. Okay. So shout to her. I sent her a text yesterday, and the three folks that I know, Zach Tafase, Maxine Hackett, and my brother Kieran Lewis from Jamaica, and there's a few others. Y'all have set the bar ridiculously high, and we are going to follow you. We are going to follow you. No chance, no doubt about it.
Yo, Andrew, thank you so much for coming in today, educating the audience, educating people, educating me about sort of some of the opportunities, some of the challenges, and sort of that pathway going forward. So thank you.
God bless everybody. Wakanda forever.